Hi, I'm Jake, purchasing agent at Amico, providing you with everything you need for clay. This episode is brought to you by Amico Brent. Find your favorite Amico glazes or Brent equipment at your local distributor. Cheers for listening. Happy glazing.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfeld Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online resource for research and inspiration, featuring photos of thousands of objects made by over 800 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great resource for students and teachers. To find out more, visit rosenfeldcollection.com. Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com. Welcome back to episode 457 of the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Today on the show, I'm talking with Caroline Cheng. She is a noted artist and curator who has recently expanded her practice into environmental design through the Yi Design Group. In this interview, we talk about launching a design startup, addressing the issue of ceramic waste, and the evolution of the pottery workshop. Caroline is the executive director of the Art Center, which promotes ceramics throughout China and has studios in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Dali, and Jingdezhen. For more information, you can visit carolinecheng.com or Yi Design Group. I worked for Caroline for quite a few years in Shanghai and thoroughly enjoyed the energy and passion that she brings to all of her projects. I think you'll be able to hear in this interview that she takes an idea and she can expand it and make it come to fruition in a way that is truly unique. But before we get to that interview, I wanted to thank some of the folks that have been supporting this podcast. We are supported through listener contributions. I'd like to thank Christian Jensen, Sarah Camille Wilson, and Michael Olson for their generosity. If you're interested in becoming a patron on the show, you can do that through patreon.com/redclayrambler. Also wanted to throw a plug out there for the podcast room that's happening at this year's NCECA conference. March the 16th and 17th, there will be 6-hour-long tapings happening in room 212. I'll be hosting an episode of this show called Taking an Environmental Approach to Making with Marianne Chenard, Julia Galloway, and Che Ochley, Friday the 17th at 2:30. If you're interested in finding out more information, you can go to NCECA.net, or you can download their newly revamped app, which is available in the App Store or Google Play or wherever you get your apps. Without further ado, we'll get to the interview. Well, actually, this is a good place to start, which is that before we started recording, you said that it's your birthday, and usually as people accomplish as much as you do, they often go on what they've done in the past, not on what they're doing in the future, but you're looking forward. So
Yes.
could you talk about that?
Okay, first of all, I am revamping Shanghai Pottery Workshop. It just used to be, as you know, because you set it up, studio space downstairs and upstairs gallery office. And then we changed it a little bit. We shrunk the office upstairs into like these teeny weeny rooms with a large gallery space. And then downstairs, we sort of divided the room up, which I didn't like, and we undivided the room up. But the operations itself is so horrible. I mean, we are making money, but that's not my point. I want to have like top level world class ceramic studio. But actually, ceramic studio, the concept of ceramic studio after COVID, for me, I think it doesn't work anymore. Like people coming in to take classes from mediocre instructors is not what I want. and they made the upstairs room into kiddie class. And like running up and down those wooden floor stairs, the wooden floor is like gone. So I was like, okay, I don't like it. Yes, we're sort of making money, but it's not what I want. So basically, we're going to shrink down the ceramic studio part into teeny weeny, maybe one instructor or two instructors left. And then what we're going to do is do a lot of cultural stuff, like take people out all over China, look at culture stuff, look at ceramics. We're going to organize a lot of events, activities, like the creative market in Jingdezhen is so good. Everybody wants, like a lot of Shanghai other operations want us to go there. So we're going to put somebody from Jingdezhen, the media girl, Yuki, she'll come to Shanghai as the operating person. And then she can organize it so that it's no longer just a studio making ceramics. It's like more stuff. So at that point, then I'm more like, I don't have to check on what are you guys doing this week? Are we actually making money? Because like actually, in fact, two instructors with full houses will make money. And then the rest I can concentrate on my startup, which is heck right now. Oh, busy.
Well, we're going to get to the startup, but I did want to talk more about how you often are perceiving what young Chinese students in ceramics need and creating something that they need before they tell you. Like you're creating it in your mind, then you create either an art center or a residency, and then they get to experience it. But how do you, as the creative person, figure out what they need?
It's really easy because China is still a little bit behind the rest of the world. So I go to the rest of the world and look at what people are doing, like let's say England, Stoke-on-Trent is so dead. Stoke-on-Trent is Jingdezhen if Jingdezhen doesn't do something about it now. Don't attract young people to be there, all of them leave, and then the ceramic business might be how do you say it, out competed by other ceramic production areas in China. So how do you keep it? So in the beginning, really, it's like, well, there's so much to see in Jingdezhen. Everybody, please come. And then young people, you want to set up a market in front of our cafe? Fine, do it. And then they all come. And now I have people from all over the country after they graduate. They say, I want to do ceramics. And they would come to Jingdezhen to set up studio. And there's the opportunity because the rent is lower. It's not a big city. And then they can sell their work and make a living and be okay. But as I can see that Jingdezhen the government is slowly tearing down the whole city and all. I mean, it's so changed, Ben, that when you go back now, it's like, hey, where's the slipcasters? Oh, they tore the whole mountain down and 2,000 studios are gone. And then, oh, where's the train track where people would put their molds out and the train would come and they would quickly put the molds back into their studio and then the train would go and they put it out again. Oh, they tore it off. No, there's no more. Okay,
Oh,
so it's
wow.
all gone. So as this is happening, our education center, our direction is to go and teach the young people to be totally independent of the craftsmen of Jingdezhen. You don't need to go to a kiln master to have your things fired. You can own an electric kiln and fire your own stuff. You can you don't have to go to like the slipcaster guy because we're teaching you how to slipcast your own stuff or like to make the mold for it or carve or blue and white painting. Do it yourself. So that's what we're doing in the education center. And for the last 3 years since COVID, Pottery Workshop Jingdezhen is actually making tons of money. I can't believe it. Like this year again, we've made so much money. I'm like, we're the only non-losing company. It's so nice to see that we actually can do it. And also selling ceramics. Even in America, you see that, sometimes you see a market, you go there and you buy some stuff, and a lot of people, depend on going from market to market, selling the work or in the studio. But as soon as 2020 hit and we had COVID, the the team is incredible. They just said, okay, we have Taobao, like live stream selling. Let's try and sell all our market people's work. We'll just go to their studio and talk about their work and sell it. And then, in China, when they sell work, it's like this. Oh, this is $5, who wants it? And then they give it like maybe 15 seconds. Nobody wants to buy it. They go next, and then they do something else. But the pottery workshop, when we sell our work, it's like, okay, here we are at so-and-so studio. This person has gone to what university? Here's the work, and what are they trying to do with their work? And, tell us their experience. Oh, look at the studio. Let's go around the studio and take a look. So a lot of people are actually copying our style of selling on the internet. And before, long time ago, when we first started out selling in with a shop, really, it was so pathetic. We would maybe sell $200 US a month. And now it's like maybe we can sell about 20,000 a month.
Oh,
US.
wow.
Yeah. At least just 2 days a week, 3 hours each time, doing something crazy.
And do you think that's because demand's changed, or because the way you're doing it in terms of educating the audience that's working?
It's people's habits in China has changed. They're laying in bed late at night. They maybe are not very happy because something happened today. And so they have this unreasonable desire to quickly buy something. And then they would all want to listen to a story. So they would come online and see what's happening. And then, there's some ceramic people talking about ceramics. Okay, I'll buy 2,000 RMB worth of stuff. Or like, okay, I'll buy a cup to make myself happy. So in fact, and then now we have a fan base. So even at the worst time, these people would just say, okay, today I support you. I'll just buy something. So that's really, that is a very different way of doing it. And then, so now, instead of just Taobao, we have a media department of 5 people in Jingdezhen. They do Bilibili, Xiaohong, Little Red Book, TikTok, Douyin in China, and Taobao. And then there's also like, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the other international, Instagram, and all that stuff. So we are very social media strong company now. And then the people who are doing it are fresh graduate from university. They have crazy like purple, blue hair. They're like weird. And then when they write so, like, the young people love that kind of writing and expression. So everybody's like, your media is, like your blog and all that is so interesting from Jingdezhen. Yeah, so it's kind of weird, like this kind of, we are moving forward now also with internet online classes, so that you don't have to come to Jingdezhen. You don't have to come to Shanghai to my studio. You may have something where you are in the middle of nowhere. So you go there, but you can take our class and watch it over and over again, and then sort of get it. And I think they even can talk to the instructor or ask questions and stuff like that. So now the next step is to come to NCCA this March and collaborate with somebody who can film master classes in America. And we were thinking of you to have a series of classes from Westerners, and we can translate that into Chinese and all that. So that's our next step. Just go international. We're not going to invite you guys to come over. Just do it in your own studio. But then we can share this kind of classes with people, and then together we can pay the artists or whatever. Yeah. So that's what we're doing next. Yeah. So when I'm doing all that, I keep thinking about you. Because I kept saying, I think Carter is always thinking about making money. Now we have this the mentality. We should really do that. And so how do we go about doing it? And then I have a CEO now. I'm an artist. I'm not going to do all that stuff. CEO, you're a business person. You do it. So yeah, sure. I let go. But as I'm watching him, I'm learning and then apply it to my new company.
Well, we'll talk more about that, because that sounds like a great idea. But one of the things that I know about your personality is that you'll start with one idea, like say the creative market, allowing younger artists in Jingdezhen to make a living. But then within a short amount of time, you're thinking bigger than that. Do you think that's just a personality trait of yours? Or how have you been successful at taking the small ideas and making them the big ideas?
first of all, I've got a big team of people who can put my ideas into realization. But also, I mean, I have 200 fresh new ideas every day, and they would say, "Shut up! No, we're not going to do that." Okay, we'll do that. Or now I don't. I'm telling you all these things that's happening. It's not even my idea anymore. It's the company's, those guys' ideas. So they'll just tell me, "Hey, we're selling on internet." I'm like, "Okay, try." I don't know. I don't like Taobao. Like, okay, fine, try. And then they'll try and I'll go, "Wow, we're making so much money during COVID. Like everybody's coming into our room like to buy stuff. That's incredible. Nobody's coming to Jingdezhen anymore, but who cares?" So yeah, it's all they come up with ideas, and usually they just ask me, and then the only thing I still do is to make sure the creative market people are the ones that I really want them to come in. After I pick the people, and that's the only thing I really put my 100% into. The rest of the stuff they can do whatever they want.
How big is the market now? Like how many artists?
It's still 80 to 120. I just let this amount of people come in. But and then it's really funny, in the old days, creative markets, people come in, they buy. And 2021, I first time after the whole like 2 months later, after I haven't been to Jingdezhen, I walked to the market, and there were like at least 20 people selling online at the market. It's so much money. Okay, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I hate them. Get them out. Like what the heck are they doing in my market? And then Ting Ting, who's in charge of the market, said, "No, we'll actually pick 3 best sellers of online sellers, influencers, and they can come and sell, but we have some rules, so they can't stand in the middle of the booth and blah 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 loudly. They have to quietly on the side with their assistant, like with taste, sell these things." And I'm like, okay, so yeah, so that's really good that they have all these ideas. It's self-basting now, basically, in Jingdezhen.
So I wanted to talk about the new startup, but before we get to that, can you explain ceramic waste in Jingdezhen? Because one of the principles of the startup is using that waste to create new products. But if people haven't been to Jingdezhen, they might not understand how much ceramic waste is created. So can you talk about that?
Yes. So as we all know, once you break your bowl, your ceramic bowl, that's the end of it. I mean, you can try and glue it together, but you can't really. So then what do? Can you recycle it? No, you just have to throw it away. And what happens to it? It gets thrown in a dumpster because there's nothing else you can do. Now, can you imagine if okay, and if you're a maker of ceramics, even big factories or small studios, you will be firing something and go, oops, it's crooked, like, or it collapsed, or the glaze is not quite right, not what I want. Like, for example, in a big factory, if there's a glitch in their firing or glaze, they really have to throw away. And then they also have QC. So it's about 20 to 40 to 50, sometimes 60% wastage from pre-consumer ceramics, like after you make it. And then in Jingdezhen, as we all know, because you've been, will you be driving down the road and you just go look into the dumpster and go, wow, hey, there's a lot of domestic garbage and ceramics, because 40% of the city's people in the ceramic business. So they might have it in their home, they might have a small studio, or they might have a big factories. There's like, I think 280 big factories in Jingdezhen. So annually, Jingdezhen creates about 1 million tons of ceramic waste. And then we did research, and China Jingdezhen is nothing. Foshan, Chaozhou, these other big, gigantic, cheap and nasty ceramic production areas. The total amount of ceramic waste in China is 18 million tons. That's I think 3,000 football fields filled to the top with ceramic waste.
Wow.
That's annually. So, so in 2015, I'm like, I kind of want to do something about that. So I took some ceramics that I found from some factory. I mean, Mr. Hu and I went driving around going, okay, where is it? There's a lot. Let's just take it all back and smash it up. And, a lot of people make terrazzo. Terrazzo is cement, and then you put aggregate in it, like little rocks in it. And so you look at it, it's like, oh, there's all these little spots of rocks inside. And I'm like, instead of like little aggregate of like natural stone where you have to go to the mountain and get, why don't we replace it with ceramic aggregate? Because that's at least something sustainable. And so we made some tables and coasters and chairs and products like mirror frames and all that. And then we were doing that, and I'm like, I hate cement, like it is such a polluting material. And China makes 3/4 of the world's cement, and it's like carbon emission. And the Western countries, they always whine about how China is so polluting, yet they buy all the cement from China. So I was like, well, instead of cement, what else can we use as a binding material for all the ceramic waste? And Carl, I don't know, do you know Carl?
I don't think so.
He said, okay, he was a student at the Ceramic Institute in 2011 or 12, 2011. And when he became a volunteer at the pottery workshop, and then later he graduated and became not sort of, but he was working in the studio, like the design studio, and then he became the manager. And so we were talking about, I'm like, how the heck are we going to replace cement? And he's like, I want to do a master's degree program. So I like to go to Central St. Martin's in London, and I would take this kind of idea, expand it, and it can become my master's thesis. So I'm like, okay, fine, go. So he came back and found something. And then so this new binding material, we worked with that since and started a new company actually in 2021 to really try. Our mission is to take care of the ceramic waste of China. And we start in Jingdezhen with them. So I mean, do you want me to go on and on, or you want to ask me for more questions?
Yeah. No, well, I do want to just tell people that some of this will make more sense if they watch the video that's on your website. So if you go to yidesigngroup.com, there's a video that is showing the scale of this, because that's what people don't understand necessarily unless they've been to Jingdezhen. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people in the ceramics industry, and they're creating all this waste. So talk me through how, when you get the waste, then what happens?
It's not how we get the waste. We have to start from the very, very beginning side. Let's do it. First of all, we have to find a factory space. Do you know how hard that is? Like, go to places too expensive or like perfect, but then it's not quite the right, this property is not supposed to do this, which we finally ended up using, but asking the government to let us do this kind of work on that piece of land. So first we found a factory site to maybe produce it, test it, and we set up a lab to continue to make sure that this binding material is more stable. And so we have to do a lot of like lab tests. We've tested since 2021. We've tested like over 10,000 different kinds of formulas. So the first was the action. The action was, okay, let's do it. And then we got the factory space. And the next step was like, how are we going to go get the stuff? And who is going to give it to us? Because we went to the government and said, look, you should like separate domestic garbage from ceramic waste. You should make the city, because the garbage sites that they take all the waste to dump, it's already all filled in the Zhusan area. Like our district is all filled up because it's half ceramic waste. And we said, we have a solution for it. So, but we want to like, research it. Can we have it? And the city were like, Shanghai can't be carbon peak and carbon neutral. How can we be? And I'm like, okay, so they're not into it. So let's do it ourselves. And in China, there's a ancient Chinese story where an old man lives on one side of the mountain, and every time he has to go to the village or whatever city, he has to go up and down a mountain. So he says, I'm going to remove this mountain. And then, so every day he takes a little bit of clay. I don't know where he dumps it because he's going to make another mountain out of it, but that's not the story. So every day he would take a bit of it out, and everybody's laughing at him. What the heck? You're not going to remove this mountain. He goes, well, when I die, my children will do it, And when they die, their children will do it. And eventually this mountain will be removed. So I'm like, hey, I like this story. It's called The Foolish Old Man Removed the Mountain. So our project became The Foolish Old Man Removed the Mountain project. So we asked everybody to help us. We knocked on we actually knocked on about 60 factories and said, hey, can you give up your stuff? Can you separate your domestic garbage from your waste first? And a lot of factories like, no, go away. Or you come and build a box, or bring a box, and we'll put it in there, and you can come and collect it. And one big factory, we brought in 2 big boxes, and it was stolen the next week when we went to.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay. But eventually 60 factories agreed to work with us and just gave us the material. And then for free. But the garbage collector said, we need to charge you a lot of money to do that. So that's what we did. So we had these people bring it into the factory. And by last year, we had to stop because we collected 5,000 tons of this material. And it wasn't, like made into products yet. Because we're still in the research level last year, like beginning of last year, like this time. So we're like, okay, stop, don't bring any more. Oh my gosh. It's like within 6 months, this place is filled with ceramics. It's incredible. So we said, okay, the next step is to make the material itself, the binding material, and the bricks and whatever we were thinking of doing, make it much better to be producible in a factory. So I mean, if you're in the lab and you say, oh, let's put it in an electric kiln and fire. Oh, it works. Oh, the glazes are great. Okay, let's mass produce it and put it in a gigantic gas kiln in the factory. And it's like, oops, it's actually like there's like uneven firing and or like oops, it doesn't hold up, whatever it is. So we were like, okay, take it back to the lab or adjust the formula. So that's what we have been doing. And meanwhile, we came up with a standard porous brick, because a porous brick can be used for sponge cities. And this sponge city, you're nodding, but most people don't know what a sponge city is. It was invented by the Dutch because they want to trap the rainwater, and so that it could be used for gardening or like flush a toilet. Because nowadays in the city, when it rains, the rainwater will go into the gutter sewage, and then it will be going into like a treatment plant, and then going back into the ocean or whatever river. But it's not necessary. It's rainwater. So then the Dutch invented this porous brick so that it can just seep right through into the ground. So when it's a massive raining, some of them will go into the sewage, but most of it will seep into the ground and into the water table. Or when it's like little rain, the water will be kept in the brick. So our brick can hold up to 300 milliliters of water and then seep through. And so when it's sunny and hot, maybe, if the brick is moist, it's kind of cooling the city down. It can cool up to like, I think, 3 degrees of a city if you have this kind of porous brick. And when there's a drought, you can go to the water table to get the water, because the water was saved instead of like, gone out into the ocean. So we said, okay, this is something is sustainable. China has a policy. They want to make 500 cities sponge cities. So maybe there's a market for our material. We can take care of our waste and sell it to projects like that. So that's our initial thinking. Like, we can invent the clay material and make it into a clay body, which we did also, and make it into like, we can make little products, design, like little furniture like Carl wanted to do, but that's not going to take care of the waste problem. So we said, no, the waste problem has to be like mass production and get it out and get rid of it. And our product is nice because you can use it and you can return it to our factory, and we can recycle it again, because we only have 3 different materials inside. So it's easy to recycle, and it's not going to degrade, because a lot of things like plastic, you can recycle plastic, but it's not as good as before. So you have to make something else with it. And then that thing, it comes back, it's not as good anymore either. So you have to make something else with it, and it gets like, the use of it is like lower and lower. But what our material is like, you just keep bringing it back. We can recycle, and it's no problem. And it's a circular product, so it's cradle to cradle. This is all like sustainable jargon right now. And in Europe right now, their slogan is, if you create anything waste, you should be able to recycle it. You shouldn't throw it away. So, which means like that's what our policy is for our ceramic product, is like, is you don't have to ever throw that stuff away. So when we built the factory, also I said zero waste, zero carbon. We go towards that. There's no renewable energy in Jingdezhen, so there's nothing we can do with that. We can't have like a solar powered electric plant. I can't pay for it myself. But apart from that, everything else, like the water we use is circular. I mean, the ceramics that come in goes out as a product. Nothing, we don't have to throw anything away. And if we cannot make anything with that aggregate, some of them we cannot, then we sell it to people who can use it as aggregate for like road building and stuff like that. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go back to the sponge brick, because this is an interesting idea. And it's actually one that makes a lot of sense relative to historic buildings. Because a lot of, like when I was in Denmark, a lot of the roofs actually were green roofs. Like they were living roofs, like there were vegetation on the roof. And it did a similar thing where it held a certain amount of moisture, and that was good, but it also repelled a lot of moisture. How do you see this idea of like the sponge brick expanding out to China? Because I think you said 500 cities, they want to do 500 cities, but how, you as a producer, how do you then meet that specific market?
So the first step is to invent this thing, which was actually 2021. So 2022, what we did was like, people would say, have you ever used it? Like, we can't buy it if you've never used it. Like, and big property developers, like, you don't have any case references, we can't use it, because who knows whether you're like a fake or whatever. So last year we have to have 5 to 10 case references. And so like, because Carl is young and he's like, he has the energy to hold up the lab and factory, and I'm an old hand, I know a lot of people, and I'm like, I never utilized that, that ability. So last year I was like, meet every top architectural firm in Shanghai and Hong Kong, meet all my friends who are in this business, meet new friends, go to conferences, meet new people, hobnob with them, beg them to try and use some of it. And then Starbucks did. And NIO, the electric car did. NIO was the first company that said, hey, we just want a little brooch with using your material. And we're like, okay, that's manageable. Like it's not a big brick that holding up a building that will collapse if we made it. So we built that first. And then Starbucks was like, okay, we want to test your material out in one of our Starbucks in Shifeng Lu in Shanghai. Now, the reason why Starbucks said we'll use it is because Shifeng Lu is a project started by Tongji University. Tongji is one of the top architectural design schools in China. So the head of Tongji, the deputy head, Lou Yuanzhang, was like, I will help you, Caroline. I will insist Starbucks use your material, or they can't open up their Starbucks in Shifeng Lu. I'm like, oh, great, yeah. So actually they did. In the beginning, they were like, oh, it's too expensive because we're starting out, we can't lower the price. So they're like, too expensive. Oh, we don't know, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly they're like, okay, we'll use it. And I'm like, Lou Yuanzhang and Aldo Chipik, who is the founder of Memphis Movement, who is also at the university, he was now my good friend, also insisted that they use our material. So they did. And it's beautiful, it's like, wow. Even for me, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, this is a nice case reference. And then while we're doing that, another Starbucks, which is bigger, said, we want your material to build a wall of like 5 different colors, and I'm like, okay, fine. And Carl was like, oh, it's going to take months because, in the beginning, the brick was solid color, but that's so expensive. So you have to like lower the price because otherwise nobody will want it. So we can only put it on the surface. So then we have to test what things will keep on the surface without like falling off and all. Anyway, so there's a lot of these like lab tests that we did it took months. And then actually we finally did it like at the end of this last month, I think. So it's being built right now. So we will have pictures of that. But H&M, like the fashion company, they wrote to us in our email and said, hey, we are interested in opening up shop using your material. What is it? How sustainable? Asking all these questions about like what is it and all that. And I'm like, hey, I'm in London, and your head office, the sustainable lead, your office is like 2 subway stops from my apartment. So I'll just come over and talk to you. And I went and showed her all the stuff, and she was like, keep it here. I'll show it to all my designers. So all the costs, Arcade and also H&M stores might want to use it. So I was like, okay, fine. So then quickly in October, they said, yeah, we use it. And then by November, they opened up a store with using our material. Wow. So that's the 4 major things. And then like, we had a friend who said, I want to make a countertop with it, using the brick as a design for the counter, not the top, just for the counter. It looks beautiful. And then we also have a lot of like potential clients who have talked to us now, and then big property developers. So, and there's one village, the architect has proposed the whole village using, like 64 village houses, part of it using our material. So as we're chugging along, I'm like, I need more people to like buy the stuff. So like, even you think I had a birthday party like 2 days ago or 3 days ago? No, I had a subliminal sales party because because over the last year I was based in Europe, because Europeans understand what I'm talking about. And I had all these people that online asked us for material, or like asked us to display our material at whatever events and stuff. And so I invited all of them to my birthday party so that I could meet them, because I'm always online with them. I don't know who they are. So I said, come over, I want to meet you in real life. So one person brought a potential client, and I think she said, I don't care about money, I just want to use the material. And I'm like, okay. And she says, the Workers Stadium in Beijing, I have the project to make all these restaurants and stuff. So I'm gonna go and find out how much I can use the material, like stuff. So that's this coming year. More case references. I know some government officials, so I'm gonna have to like beg them. It's not as easy to do government projects. And then we've collaborated with a brick producing factory, because our factory is just a research and development factory. It's just to test it out, so that to see whether it would actually work if we factory fire the stuff. But in the end, there's no way I'm going to start a gigantic brick factory. I'm not like a factory manager or owner. So we collaborated with somebody, and he does a lot of these big projects. So he probably knows a lot of people, and he can go and contact these people and sell our bricks for us too.
Part of this whole design world is entering design competitions. And I've noticed over the last year or so that it's been successful. Like, you guys have won a couple major awards. Can you talk a little bit more about how that process works of entering design competitions, and then what you need to do to win?
Okay, so it's not what we need to do to win. We must have some international prestigious awards. We must receive some of these awards in order to be recognized as something that's actually not dumb. It's a real thing. So last year we're like, okay, we came down with a list of awards that we like to win, and we have somebody who helps us write these applications. So I said, okay, Red Dot is a product award. Good Design Japan is a product award. So all these like product awards, we because this brick is a product, so we applied with it. But I made a like unprofessional home video about, you see it on my website. But actually, I'm not I'm not an amateur. I am an artist, so I can make a video. And we have a market person who used to do post-production video, editing. So he helped us edit it. But so we use that video also as an application. And when people look at that video, they're like, okay, and they recognize that what we're doing is like incredible. There are lots of bricks in the market that claim to be recycled, and most of them are about 30% recycled material, and then maybe cement or maybe clay. But our material is up to 97. The porous brick is 97% porcelain waste, which is like an incredible feat. So, I mean, people recognize that and gave us an award. And I would say things like, I want an American award, I want a Swiss award, I want a French award, I want an English award, so we would look into all that. So that was last year. And now, sort of at the end of last year, this coming year, we want to be recognized by the United Nations. We want to be recognized by Prince William Earthshot Prize. We really want to apply to that this year, so that more like government people recognize us. So with that, will help us talk to like the Chinese government and say, look, we have all these awards and prize. We're not the same as any old brick factory in China claiming they are recycling stuff. So we want to separate ourselves from the regular people to be more prestigious and important. That's how this is sort of like a marketing strategy for us. We have to get. I mean, we're redoing our website because my daughter Melanie did the website. So I was like, and she's a like beginner UX professional. But I want to hire a total professional to come in and work on our website. And then he said, well, you have to brand yourself first. So he asked us all these questions about what we do and all that. And he said, e-design is like as if you're a design company, but you're selling architectural bricks. You should change your name. And I'm like, no, we are e-design. We are designers, because in the end, we will use the design part, art part, to sell what our construction material also. And then we want to work with like high-end prestigious product. For example, right now we're working with Louis Vuitton. They're opening up a store in Japan, and we're working on making a table for them using our material. So we want to work with top high-end people like that.
So in your art career as a maker, you've often sold to these luxury brands. Like I know when I was in Shanghai, you were often working I'm trying to think of the name of the jeweler.
Van Cleef.
Yeah, Van Cleef. Are you using those connections in this instance too? Like how much crossover is there between your personal art career and the direction this company is going?
The only thing, when I go and maybe like beg people to use my material, I would say I'm not just a salesperson or marketing person. I'm actually, my work is shown at the British Museum. I am an established artist, so I'm not some young thing with no experience. I am actually an old hand. I'm like your mother. You should listen to me. You should use this brick because it's good for you and the world. And they're like, okay, we'll use it. Most of them are like, yes, mom. Okay. It's like that. So salespeople are usually young and they're like cheesy looking, but I just go there and I talk to them as an artist, as an established artist, in a very different angle. So they everybody likes that. But I think that I didn't use a lot of my old connections, but because of who I am, a lot when I introduce myself or I get to know people, they understand and they become my friends, or they would try and say, okay, we'll try and promote it or use it, and some will think about it. So they won't brush me away and say, who are you? Go away.
And I think this startup is the most business-oriented project of yours that I've known about. Like you had the creative design factory, but that was really R&D. Like that was, things were being created, but it was on a much smaller scale. What did you learn from the design factory in Jingdezhen, the previous design factory, that you're applying in this business?
The previous design studio came up with a lot of waste. That was the beginning. That was like, Carl was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with that? I'm like, let's recycle. Yes, prototyping. Like a lot of people come in and say, "Hey, can you make this?" And we'll have the prototype maker. So right now, with the bricks and stuff, like especially with these high-end projects, we have the prototype. So Carl, it's actually Carl who's doing all that, but he's experienced because he worked formerly in the design studio prototyping for other people. Yeah, so that really helps us. Um, and like shipping and all that. I mean, it's all like the business part of it. So it's not like new to us, and we have to figure out. We don't have to figure out.
So logistically, right now, or at least when I was there 10 years ago, shipping out of China was super easy. But then the pandemic has happened and global supply chains have really slowed down. So at this point, like as of January 2023, is it easier for you to ship, or what are the considerations to ship to London or to ship to Beijing? Like compare those two for us.
It's the same. You just go through shipping and all that. But having said that, nowadays the in thing to do is to calculate your embodied carbon of your product. So from getting it in the raw material part to manufacturing to selling to customer to the customer using it, and then in the end what happens to it, they calculate this kind of like carbon emission. And so transportation is a big thing. Like I went to London and I met with Tom Dixon, and I said to him, like, you should use the material for your design. And he was like, what can I make? And I'm like, well, tables, candle holders, whatever, for whatever you want, you can make. And I said, and because like one day for the heck of it, they shipped some bricks to me, and the part begin in the beginning when the bricks were not so stable, and then so it crumbled a little bit. So I just smashed it up into small rocks, and I put some essential oil, and then I'm like, "Hey, our studio smells like hotel for days and days and days." So I said to Tom Dixon, "You should use that as like a essential oil diffuser," and he's like, "Okay, but from China, I ordered this thing." And then shipped to London. Then I have the perfume guys who are in France. They ship their stuff to me. Then we have to package it and ship it all over the world. This is not sustainable. And I'm like, okay, Tom, I'm telling you now, you should just do China market. Why don't you design something just for the China market and we just do local? Because yes, transportation sucks. And so they said, and he said, I can't because my the company China representative is some woman from Hong Kong, and which later I met and talked to her and say, you should talk to Tom about, anyway. So he considered, transportation costs as a major factor, and a lot of people do. So I don't consider shipping to London really that is like, it would be better. Okay. So our strategy for our company is also first start in Jingdezhen. Eventually we'll move to like another ceramic production area. They will help us. Okay, they can collaborate with us. We can give them the technology. They can build their own factory and do this. And then eventually all the production areas will have some recycling mechanism. And then go to Brazil, India, who are the two largest other ceramic production areas in the world. And then maybe Italy. Then Italy can provide for the whole of Europe. And then we don't have to deal with shipping from here all the way there. And so that's our strategy for like, and eventually maybe we can invent a very small contraption where you can just like recycle your local community ceramics, dump it in like a can, and then that thing can make it into something else and pop out, and you're like, oh yeah, I can recycle my own stuff. So that's what we are like thinking of in that sense, like transportation. I don't even think about transportation to London. But having said that, in London, maybe they do have like tiles from China and bricks. So, I mean, they transport it anyway. So we'll do that. It's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, as soon as you said we're going to start in Jingdezhen and expand, I started thinking about the need for Jingdezhen to have the sponge bricks specifically, because flooding is a periodic problem in Jingdezhen and has been. I mean, historically, it floods there too. Like that's just a problem with that area. I love the idea that the sponge brick could help with that.
Well, I think Jingdezhen is so flooded that the sponge bricks cannot help the water going into the water table. It's just so much water. But like we're thinking of places like more like desert area. I'm thinking like we should market our stuff to the Saudi Arabia, that kind of like countries, because they're desert. If there rains, they should really try and hold down all the water. Actually, the Netherlands, Dutch, there's a government policy of every year, every single new building now, they must retain 70% of the rainwater. So I was thinking maybe our material can be placed on the roof so that this water can seep down into like some tank, and then they can use that water for flushing or whatever. So like, yeah, so places like that would even collaborate with us on the design of something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there are certain areas. I mean, I can imagine Saudi Arabia, very hot. It rained, but the water is like seeped into underground. And then, but the bricks retain also water. So like the house is cooler, the water's retained. There's a garden with, like nice plants. It's nice. And I think I would like to see who knows somebody in that area who would like to try our material out, because if they use it, it's mass quantity also.
So I wanted to end switching gears and talking about you as an artist. We mentioned before, like you make sculpture, you make ceramic, clothing that's been widely exhibited in museums and all these different places, but you're also a potter and you've made pots for a long time. Where is your not factory interest, not design interest, but you as an artist? Like, where are you at these days? What are you thinking about?
I'm not. I'm thinking about garbage collecting. I'm a garbage collector now. When people say, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a garbage collector." What artist? Who has time? Are you joking? Okay. Having said that, jokingly, there's top brands in China. I mean, in the world, like Loewe, the Spanish company. They and other top like name brands like that. They're all thinking about sustainability. So they're trying to say, okay, Caroline, can you as an artist help us design a facade using your material, but you as an artist doing it. So I'm like, yes. So not me, but Carl is like, I think there's a LV store in China, and they're, I think, asking him to do it. But so we're talking to people like that and then saying like, hey, can we make some work? But actually combining both what I do as an artist and what I'm doing with the company. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. Like, I'm waiting for opportunities to happen.
Well, I like the idea that this material can be colored to basically anything. And on the website, it talks about that you can Pantone color match. So you as an artist, like the possibility is endless. If you get a facade of a building, you can use this product to do basically anything you want.
Yeah, so it's like we've invented the camera. Now everybody come and use it, like in your own different way. So that's what we do, because it's not just an architectural brick and tile thing. It's also like product, it's also art, but we don't right now in the beginning of our startup, we have to concentrate on one thing so far. So 2023, second part of the year, we're doing product. So we're hoping to collaborate with a designer and make some furniture out of that, or some interior design things also, and then come up with our own thing. So it's Chinese New Year soon, but the first week of February, I'm going back to Jingdezhen to use this material and test it out. And from now till then, I'm thinking of ways to do something. Like I was thinking of like little compartments where you can stick your head in and look at a piece of work, but it smells nice because this material can actually absorb smell. So it's also just like, apart from your eyes, your nose, maybe some sound. So it's like a mixture, but using this material as like an experience. So yeah, I'm thinking of ways of making some fun things, and then we will display it. We are participating in this year. We will probably go to the Milan Furniture Fair, as well as like Design Shanghai, Design China, and Design Shenzhen. And Foster and Partners in London, the architectural firm, has invited us this year to display our material in their material library. And that's big time, because all their architects would go and look at it and try and use it. So that's big. So I'm every time every time I'm like, what would Ben Carter do? Well, how would he go about, trying to, make the most out of this?
Well, that's good to hear. But I do think that also there is something about the way you approach business that is so specifically you. And I think that's probably attractive to these companies because I'm imagining Louis Vuitton, if they're coming to you to design something, they do want the personality. Like they want you. They want your exuberance, your creativity. You're as much a part of this as anyone else. So
Actually, no. Louis Vuitton is Carl's contact, which is incredible because
okay.
he went to Central St. Martin's. Do you know how many classmates who are working in like big design companies now who can
Okay,
be his
gotcha.
contacts? Yeah, or his like the time that he was there, he met all these people. So that's actually, yeah, that's why he went. I'm like, it's not going to study ceramics. Who cares? It's to network. And the best thing about Central St. Martin's is they have courses after courses teaching you how to talk to, like, how to market your work. What are you making? Why are you making this? Who's your market? How are you going to sell it? What's your story? And then so like, how are you going to, when you meet somebody, how are you going to talk to that person? So I think that that is such good training. I think that's the best school to do that, because most art schools, like, you go there, you learn the stuff and you goodbye. But his professor's always asking him like blah 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 blah, and then pushing the students. And when I went to meet Simon, his tutor, he asked me the same question, like, okay, what's Carl's doing? What are you guys doing? Blah blah blah. And I answered all his questions because I'm not a student. And he was like, wow, this is great. And I'm like, yeah. And you're right. Our company is just not a boring architectural brick company. We have a story to tell. The story is there's a lot of waste and we need to get rid of it. So help us. And I'm an artist. Carl tries to be like a designer, like now he has no time to be a designer because he's working so hard. But the opportunity at LV is like great. He's, like this year I told him, yes, there's work to be done. We must find investors to come in so that we can pay people to come and do what we are doing now, because the two of us with Ding, the three of us, we are doing about 10 people's job. So like I cannot be marketing sales. I must hire a professional in the end. But as a startup, it's okay for the first 2 years. But after that, I want to retire and go back to my horse riding and like doing my own stuff.
Well, to wrap up, can you leave the website for the project?
Okay, it's www.yi design group, like you have to spell it out, edesigngroup.com. And have fun, everybody.
Well, thanks, Caroline. It was good to see you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, man.
I'd like to thank Caroline for doing this interview. It was a pleasure to catch up with her. And I also wanted to mention that she will be presenting at this year's NCECA conference on sustainable ceramics. So make sure to look her up in the NCECA programming guide. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's sponsors. That's Amico Brent, the Archie Bray Foundation, and the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor on the show, you can get in touch through our network website. That's brickyardnetwork.org. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like more information on the artists on the show, or if you'd like more information about the workshops and events that I'll be having in the next couple months, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Carter Pottery. Another great way to support the show is to leave me a comment on iTunes. To do that, search Tales of a Red Clay Rambler under iTunes Podcasts, and you'll find a page that's linked to our show. Thank you guys for the support.
This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network. an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.